Listen up, because what I witnessed on SportsCenter last night is going to fundamentally change how you view this Lakers season. And I'm not talking about some superficial roster moves here. This is about organizational identity, championship DNA, and the kind of strategic thinking that separates contenders from pretenders. So I'm watching this extended segment where they're breaking down the latest Lakers press conference with Redick and Rob Pelinka, and the insights coming out about Marcus Smart's role had me literally rewinding the broadcast because the implications are absolutely massive. Let me paint the picture of what went down during this press conference coverage, because the devil is always in the details with these things. Redick was being characteristically careful about revealing too much strategic information. Coaches never want to give opponents free scouting reports, but when he started talking about Marcus Smart, you could hear the excitement in his voice. The SportsCenter panel was dissecting every word, and what emerged was a vision for Smart that goes way beyond what most people expected when the Lakers signed him. Here's the quote that had everyone in the studio sitting up straight. "Toughness. I already told him this, and we need his voice, his competitive spirit, defense, and Marcus can be a secondary ball handler." Now hold up right there, because that last part about being a secondary ball handler, that's not throwaway coach speak. That's strategic intelligence that reveals how Redick is thinking about constructing this offense. And it has massive implications for how rotations are going to work, how late-game situations will unfold, and, honestly, how this entire season could play out. The SportsCenter analysts were immediately connecting dots that casual fans might miss. If Smart is being positioned as a secondary ball handler, that's usually territory reserved for guys like Gabe Vincent or even Austin Reeves when LeBron and Luka aren't on the floor. But Redick isn't just talking about Smart handling the ball when the stars sit. He's talking about Smart being a legitimate playmaking option within the primary offensive structure. That's a completely different conversation, and it suggests the Lakers are planning something far more sophisticated than most people realize. But then Redick expanded on his comments, and this is where the segment got absolutely fascinating from a strategic standpoint. He said, "I say toughness, and I already told him this. We need his voice as part of communication, his competitive spirit defensively. He'd probably be a bit under the radar because of the last 2 seasons, but he still guards or grades out nearly every metric in the 80th percentile or higher." The broadcast crew was emphasizing this point about Smart being under the radar because of his injury-plagued stint in Memphis, but statistically, he's still performing at an elite defensive level when healthy. The panel then dove into what this means tactically, and I've got to tell you, this is where the analysis got brilliant. Smart brings this incredibly rare combination of point-of-attack defense and positional versatility. He can guard 1s, 2s, 3s, and in certain matchups, even 4s. In today's switch-heavy NBA, that kind of defensive flexibility is championship-level valuable. But more importantly, and this is what the SportsCenter crew kept emphasizing, Smart's defensive communication and leadership can transform an entire team's identity on that end of the floor. Then Redick dropped the second part of his assessment, and this is where things got really interesting from an offensive perspective. And to me, he's always been a bit of an underrated playmaker. I think Austin and Luka guys are obviously going to be the primary for us, but Marcus can be that secondary ball handler. The way the analysts broke this down was perfect. They weren't just talking about Smart as a backup point guard, they were discussing him as a secondary action creator within the primary offensive set. Think about what this means strategically. You've got LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves as your primary ball handlers and creators. But basketball isn't played in isolation. You need guys who can make plays when the ball swings to the weak side, when the defense rotates, when opportunities emerge away from the primary action. Smart brings point guard decision-making and passing ability to those secondary situations in ways that guys like Dorian Finney-Smith simply couldn't provide last season. The SportsCenter panel made this comparison that really hit home for me. They contrasted Smart with Finney-Smith, who was a solid 3-and-D player but limited as a playmaker. Finney-Smith could make the right pass, but he wasn't going to create advantages or thread difficult passes. Smart, with his point guard background and basketball IQ, can actually generate offense when the ball finds him in those secondary situations. That's the difference between having role players and having basketball players, if you know what I mean. But here's where the broadcast took an interesting turn, and this is something I think most fans aren't considering. What does Smart's expanded role mean for someone like Gabe Vincent? Vincent spent most of last season as that trusted first guard off the bench, the backup point guard who could run sets and create for others. If Smart is being positioned as a secondary ball handler who might start or play significant minutes with the Stars, where does that leave Vincent in the rotation? The analysts were speculating that this could completely reshape the Lakers' depth chart in ways we haven't fully anticipated. The starting lineup discussion became a major focal point of the segment, and this is where Redick's comments got really strategic. He mentioned that 7 or 8 guys on the roster could legitimately start, which sounds like coach speak until you really think about the mathematics of it. If you're penciling in LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves, and presumably DeAndre Ayton as locks for 4 starting spots, that leaves one position up for grabs. The Sports Center crew was debating whether that final spot would go to Rui Hachimura or Marcus Smart, and the arguments on both sides were compelling. Hachimura brings offensive versatility and creates mismatches, especially when he's playing alongside LeBron and Luka, because opposing teams don't have many players who can match his size and skill set. But Smart brings that defensive intensity and communication that could transform the entire team's identity. The panel kept coming back to this fundamental question: do the Lakers want to prioritize offense or defense in their starting 5? And honestly, that decision might determine their ceiling this season. But then the conversation shifted to something that I think is even more important than starting lineup: Smart's injury history and how the Lakers plan to manage his workload. The broadcast detailed his struggles in Memphis, where he barely played more than 35 games in either of his 2 seasons there. The Lakers' new medical and athletic performance staff apparently has a specific plan to get Smart through 65-70 games this season, which would represent a massive improvement over his recent track record. This is where the strategic thinking gets really sophisticated, and the Sports Center analysts were all over this angle. There's a legitimate argument for bringing Smart off the bench, not because he's not good enough to start, but because his playing style and intensity level can be his own worst enemy. He plays so hard, so physically, that he often ends up injuring himself over the long haul. The panel was suggesting that maybe the Lakers get more value from Smart playing 65 games off the bench than 30 games as a starter. Think about the mathematics of that decision. Would you rather have Marcus Smart starting for 30 games, or would you rather have him coming off the bench and providing elite defense and playmaking for 65 to 70 games? When you frame it that way, the answer becomes pretty obvious. The Lakers need Smart's unique skill set available for as much of the season as possible, including the playoffs, not just the first month before he gets hurt again. Then the broadcast shifted to what might be the most significant news of the entire segment: J.J. Redick's contract extension. According to Shams Charania's reporting, Redick received 2 additional years on his deal, making it a 5-year contract worth $45 million that will take him through the 2029-30 season. Let me repeat that. J.J. Redick is now locked up longer than Luka Doncic. That's not just a vote of confidence. That's a statement about organizational philosophy and long-term vision. The Sports Center panel was emphasizing what a remarkable development this represents. Redick just completed his first season as a head coach, and despite all the chaos, the mid-season trade that completely reshuffled the roster, the playoff disappointment, and yes, his house literally burning down in the LA fire, the Lakers were so impressed with his work that they immediately secured him for the long term. That speaks to qualities that don't always show up in win-loss records. What really caught my attention during the broadcast was how they detailed Redick's personal growth and self-awareness throughout his first season. He apparently acknowledged in the press conference that he had to learn how to be a coach beyond just game situation. Coming from a playing background where you're always in competitor mode, he had to develop the communication and leadership skills necessary for handling media responsibility, managing personalities, and representing the organization in all contexts. The fact that Redick reached out to other coaches around the league including Rams coach Sean McVay. To learn how to improve shows the kind of intellectual humility and growth mindset that championship organizations require. Most coaches, especially first-year coaches, are too proud or too insecure to admit they need help in areas outside their core competencies. Redick's willingness to seek guidance and acknowledge areas for improvement suggests he has the adaptability necessary for long-term success. But here's what really emerged from the SportsCenter coverage that I think people are missing. This Lakers team is being constructed with a very specific identity and philosophy in mind. The Marcus Smart acquisition isn't just about adding a good player. It's about adding a particular type of competitor and communicator who can help establish championship-level standards. The Redick extension isn't just about rewarding a coach for one decent season. It's about committing to a long-term vision and giving that vision time to fully develop. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, what the Lakers are building makes a lot of sense. They've got two transcendent talents in LeBron and Luka, who can create offense at an elite level. They've got Austin Reeves, who's developed into a legitimate two-way contributor. They've added Ayton to solidify the center position. And now, with Smart, they're adding the kind of defensive intensity and leadership that championship teams require. The chemistry and culture piece can't be understated either, and this is something the SportsCenter panel kept coming back to throughout the segment. Smart isn't just known for his individual defense. He's known for making everyone around him better defensively through his communication and energy. When you have a guy who's holding teammates accountable, setting screens with malicious intent, diving for loose balls, and generally playing like every possession matters, that mentality becomes contagious. What fascinated me most about the entire broadcast was how it revealed the Lakers' decision-making process and organizational priority. They could have pursued a bigger name or a more established offensive creator, but they chose Smart specifically because of what he brings beyond the box score. That suggests an organization that understands what actually wins championships versus what generates headlines. The timing couldn't be better either, with Media Day approaching on Monday and the season rapidly approaching. Smart will have time to integrate into Redick's system, build chemistry with his new teammates, and establish his role within the team's hierarchy. The Lakers clearly believe they've found a missing piece that can help unlock their championship potential. And based on everything that came out in this SportsCenter segment, I think they might be absolutely right. That's what went down on the broadcast last night, and honestly, the more I think about it, the more convinced I become that the Lakers might have just made the perfect addition at the perfect time. Tentar Novamente.